Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the In Stride Podcast. If you're a new listener, we have recently done 3 separate interviews with each of our founders, Alex Bowden, Nathan Bartels, and myself, Justin McQuerry, that are available on both Spotify and YouTube. And this week's episode is a discussion-based podcast around what we are currently up to and some commentary on 2 T1D related topics. If you're finding these podcasts interesting or useful, please drop us a like or a follow on any of our social media platforms and check out our website to learn more. On to the episode.
You know what's funny about that? We should just hit record on this because this is a funny conversation.
It's been recording, so we're good.
Okay, that's great.
Great, you can see me messing with my microphone.
Those are the best. Oh, we're already recording. Okay, great. Oh yeah, we've been recording this for the last 5 minutes. Okay, so I just moved to Austin, and I'm measuring out how much insulin I have left before I have to figure out where my new pharmacy is. Where I don't have a doctor here yet, obviously, so I'm gonna have to call in a favor for my home and say, can you write me one more script, please? But it is such a hassle. You're right, man. It's like I've been doing this for 29 years. Can I just get a card? Can I just get a card that says, okay, I can go to the pharmacy and I can buy my insulin? I mean, come on, guys. It's like I think we can keep the healthcare costs lower by not requiring us to always go into the doctor to get our insulin prescription.
Yep.
I know what my A1C is, man. It's in my CGM.
It's silly that it still is the way it has been since I can remember going to the doctor for diabetes since I was a kid, a teenager. And it's the exact same every 3 months. Actually, I think I only have to go every 6 months now, but it's same thing. When the insurance changes.
Heaven forbid, man, you're at a race, you're in a new town, you lose something, you lose your insulin, you forgot your insulin,
Yep.
And then you have to scramble and figure out how to get it transferred or get a call in to where you can.
So
you've had that experience.
I have 100% been in that boat, and actually have been in that boat this year. Unfortunately, more than once because I seem to make the same mistake multiple times. But the pro tip for that is either using Walgreens or CVS because there's a Walgreens or CVS in every town in every state across the U.S. So they can transfer your prescription from one pharmacy to another, and sometimes you do have to pay out of pocket for it. Like if you just got your refill in the last month and you have a 3 month prescription, sometimes I end up paying for it, but I don't have to go through the hassle of calling the doctor on a Saturday. They might not even be there, trying to figure out some way of faxing my prescription from one pharmacy to another pharmacy that's in a different state, and using a national chain like that helps. In my experience, when you inevitably forget to bring insulin to Arkansas for a bike race and your pump's out.
That's a great strategy.
I've got
national chain pharmacies, folks. That's the takeaway tonight.
All right, so check this out. Related, not for a bike race, but so we were getting ready for a wedding. We got married in September of 2019. So I have to get my Dexcoms through one of those services that costs way too much money and is way too big of a pain in the ass to actually deal with. It's Byram or something like that. Anyway, had a bunch of Dexcoms sent to me, got a 3-month supply, and in the process of getting everything, we DIY'd our wedding at this place. Somehow managed to throw away the box of Dexcoms. 3 months supply of them.
Oof.
Or something happened, God only knows what, they didn't exist anymore. And I was using I think it was on the Tandem closed loop. So I was like, do I spend $3,000 to replace these things? Do I just wait? You know what? Without CGM for a really long time, we'll just wait. We got right into a super rural area, so there was really no chance of getting anything else. That was let's just say that my wife said in her vows that she would always remember to feed me fruit snacks. My blood sugars were low, and I didn't realize that the next morning, because we were dancing all night, so exercising, and I didn't have my CGM, I went super low overnight and got woken up by the paramedics.
Whoa. Oh, the day after getting married. That's wild.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, that was it's like, well, here's what you're in for.
Just jumping into the deep end. But I'm sure that wasn't the first time, unfortunately. But it is what it is, right?
I think you have a more usable. What's
that? I just think it's funny when we lose access to these tools. We go back to before we had them. I'm like, I'll it'll be time for me to change my sensor, and I'll just let it run. I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to go for a while without this thing, and I feel so naked, man. It's like I'm so blind to what's going on, and I'll force myself to do it because I'm like, okay, I have to remember that this is such a privilege that I have access to 24/7 reading of exactly where my blood sugars are, but even more important than that, where they're going. And God, man, it's such a weird feeling to go back to what where we started, just taking finger sticks every few hours. But I'll force myself to do it just for kind of the fun of remembering what it was like.
Yeah,
it's a way to instill some gratitude. But that's a bummer with your wedding story, man. That's
I mean, it's all good, right? It was just kind of one of those things where there was so much going on. I didn't even think about the fact that we're drinking alcohol, we're dancing a lot. Dancing is exercise. Exercise tends to lower your blood sugars. I should drop my insulin, just with all the things happening that day. So, Justin, I think, you had your lesson of use national pharmacies, and my really dumb one that seems really obvious is don't throw away a 3-month supply of Dexcoms.
That's a pretty good one too. That's a solid lesson right there, all around. Nice. Well, so since we are well into this podcast already, what did you guys get up to this last week? Since we do not have, I know we both, Alex and Nathan, have topics of discussion for later, but before we get to that, what happened in the lives of both Alex and Nathan since we last talked?
Okay, I guess I'll go. So I just recently moved to Austin, Texas, and I had heard of this bike ride race. No, just a bike ride. It's just a community bike ride. But Justin, you can probably back me up on this, man. I feel like amongst the 4 groups, there was 300 plus riders.
I'd say 300 is on the low end.
I don't think I'm yeah, I was gonna say 4, but that just seems like way too many people.
Yeah, the ride the month before had over 800. It's huge. It's one of the biggest group ride organizations in the country, and it's right here in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, super impressive, really well run, really just top notch. I mean, it felt like I was at a very well organized event that I paid hundreds of dollars to enter, and this thing was just a local group ride. However, still supported by the local police. We had escorts, we had group leaders. I mean, it was just the hook, and the Austin athletic community showed up, and a bunch of fast guys and gals, and we raced around Austin and up the steep little hills out of the river. And it was great, man. It was a great welcome to the Austin cycling community. It was super fun. It's always fun when you do these kind of rides as a type 1 diabetic, because I don't know if you ever nail everything perfect. And I was talking to the boys before we hit record, I leave the house, I'm stoked. I've got, nutrition for the ride, but I took my basal insulin in the morning, and I realized I didn't take any fast acting insulin. I'm currently on an MDI protocol where it's just multiple day injections. So I take my basal insulin in the morning, and then I take a fast acting pen with me. I usually just have that thing in my pocket, and normally, before the ride, I eat, let's say 10 minutes before the ride starts. I'd start to prime the system. I, eat a little bit eat half a Cliff Bar, maybe take a little bit of insulin to make sure that sugar's getting where it needs to go, but not over bolusing to where I'm going to crash. And, but yeah, I forgot my fast acting insulin. So I was just going to, run on empty as far as the nutrition goes. But, the race where the ride didn't go out too quick. And so just kind of cruised and ended up, being able to consume, maybe 75 to 100 grams of carbs through the ride, just, the needs of the muscles, with basal insulin doing the rest. And it worked out great. Fun takeaway from the ride: as a type 1 diabetic, we've got these cool In Stride jerseys, so that basically got my billboard on that says I'm a type 1 diabetic, and met another fellow type 1 diabetic, and we got to chit chat a little bit about, training and racing and riding and, managing insulin and all the rest. So again, just the best part of being a person with type 1 diabetes is meeting everybody out there that also lives with this chronic condition. So that was pretty fun, and
that community is so that community it's always there, which is great.
Yeah, it's so fun, and you get to dive in on the tips and tricks and what you're doing, and that's why we're here with In Stride to share the lessons that we've learned over the years and to kind of bridge that gap. One of the things that Matthew, shout out to you, man, it was fun meeting you. One of the things we talked about was there's this kind of gap in the space where you have the medical health, where you go in and they get you kind of tuned up on what insulin is, how to use it, how it works, what kind of devices that you want to use to control diabetes. And then you're kind of off on your own. And then you have the sports science literature, the sports, the high level coaches that you can tap into to kind of teach you, training and racing methodologies and, how to best kind of tune your body. But to connect those two is sometimes pretty confusing, and there's no just one source to kind of learn, well, how do I take that sports science literature and how do I combine it with what I've been taught at my clinic, and how do I really take those two things and really excel at this with type 1 diabetes. And that's what In Stride's here to do. And that was that conversation I had with Matthew, and it was really great. I mean, that's everything we've learned, Alex, by getting to surround ourselves by other athletes with this disease, and Justin, you as well, and just learning from each other's mistakes and wins and just refining the processes.
Yeah, those meetings and connections and interactions, when they just happen organically and naturally and something we're already doing, are even more meaningful and powerful in my experience. And it's love to see that it happened at a group ride, the Breakfast Club group ride here in Austin. That's love to see it. I know it's happened to me several times in the past, and I'm sure it will continue to happen as long as we keep this going.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Could you say it costs hundreds of dollars to do this ride?
No. What I was saying, okay, thanks for asking. Yeah. So, no, the ride is free. It felt like a ride that I paid lots of money to participate in. You go out to see it, and or any of the lifetime events, which are just over the top and super well run and awesome. You're surrounded by hundreds of other cyclists and. But you pay to do that. And so what blew me away is it had a very similar feel as far as the organization of the ride and the support. But it's just a local group ride. It just blew my mind. Super cool. Really well done, Breakfast Club.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Thank you for clarifying. I was like, wow, you're paying hundreds of dollars a week to do this? That's must be a really good ride.
It is, but we're not. Yeah,
let's get Justin. Let's stick on the bike riding theme for tonight. Justin, you were just in Chicago racing bikes.
Are you sure?
Any fun happenings? Any lessons learned from that trip?
Lessons learned in bike racing. Diabetes thankfully worked out perfectly. I actually I take that back. I did not remember to bring everything with me again. So this trip was going to be 48 hours. I was going to leave Friday night, get back Monday morning at like 1 a.m. Trip ended up becoming like 36 hours because of travel. Like my first flight got delayed, so I changed it. My next flight got canceled, got changed to another flight, blah, 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 the whole travel debacle. But I fly into Chicago, or I land in Chicago, and I realized my pump's out of insulin. Need to refill the reservoir. It's fine. I remember to bring my insulin. I remember to bring spare reservoirs. But with the tandem pump, you have to manually take the insulin with a syringe to take it from the vial to put in the reservoir. And I realized I did not bring one of those with me to Chicago. So I was like on the tarmac, landed like 2 hours before the race I was supposed to do that night. And I was like, oh shoot, I don't have any insulin on board. And I don't have any way of getting this insulin that's in this vial into my pump or into me. So we stopped at a CVS that was just outside the airport, and I went up to the pharmacy and bought a bag of syringes, just like the old orange cap safety syringes for like when I was doing MDI and didn't have insulin pens. You drawn up out of the vial, and I had to necessarily purchase those guys to fill up the reservoir, and we were set after that. But yeah, so another lesson learned: and make sure you bring all your stuff, all of it, like not just the insulin, not just the sites, not just the reservoirs, all of it, with me. And the bike racing,
It's crazy because if you would have remembered that, nothing would have happened. It would have just been extra stuff in your bag.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
basically my experience. Every time I bring extra, nothing. I never need it. But when I don't, that's when suddenly it becomes an emergency.
It's inevitable, isn't it? Unfortunately, this continues to happen to me, but thankfully, I've found all the loopholes and hacks to fix these issues should they arise, because I have a good way of making them arise, unfortunately. Bike racing wise, kept it upright. Kind of got my butt kicked on Saturday because we got there like an hour before the race. But still to build up the bike and got like 10 minutes of riding before the race started. Definitely not primed for actually racing your bike. Sunday, the race that we were really focusing on just didn't go quite our way. We were kind of outgunned. The team we were racing against had a full team, and we did not. So it was a little tricky, but there's still one more race in the series, and we're very much in contention for the sprint classification that'll take place at Gateway Cup in St. Louis over Labor Day weekend. So all eyes ahead for that on the road scene, but I've got a couple gravel races coming up, so gotta keep the miles in until then. So on the bike theme, sorry.
What gravel races you have coming up?
So I've got Core 4 in Iowa City it's 2 weeks from Saturday, and then the following weekend is Gravel Worlds, the U.S. version, not the World Championships, in Lincoln, Nebraska the following week. Yeah. So we'll do a nice little road trip up to Iowa and then to Nebraska, get out of Texas for a little bit.
The roads around Iowa City are great. I lived in Iowa City for a little while. I went to the U of I for a semester, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. The riding is awesome. It's excellent.
I've heard good things, so I'm excited to go out there. I'm excited for Lincoln as well. I've heard really good things about that race, so it should be a fun little stint of back-to-back races, and it seems like there's going to be a lot of folks at both of them, so it should be good.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. But to keep it on the bike theme, Alex, I think I saw a kid on a bike this weekend. How'd it go for you?
Oh yeah. We had a third birthday on Sunday, a big old party on Saturday, and the little one got a pedal bike now. So she's been absolutely smashing it on her balance bike. Just like, you've got a steep driveway, and she'll go to the top and go, I'm going to go fast, and just push off. Whips around that cul-de-sac. I swear to God, she is at like a 45-degree angle, like going around that corner. It is wild. So we also got our knee pads and elbow pads because, the inevitable will happen. But yeah, we found this, like, it's a commensal. They make a bunch of mountain bikes. And so we found this like 14-inch mountain bike with disc brakes.
Nice.
For like a reasonable price.
Nice.
So yeah, it's pretty sweet. I do have to take it in because the set screw that like adjusts the reach, because it's a 2mm screw, immediately stripped, which is annoying. Luckily on the front brake, so the rear brakes you can learn how to use it. We tried the pedals for a few minutes, but we're not quite there yet.
Soon.
But yeah,
soon.
that's basically what's that?
Soon.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny, man. I got Sebastian, my youngest, on a pedal bike when he turned 3. I got him one of those little one bikes, and they come with a kickback brake, right? But I'm like, oh, we got to take that thing off. I'm gonna put this kid on a real bike. So I bought the little like free hub wheel to put into it. And then I realized once we got him on it, he's ripping around and his hands aren't big enough to get around the brakes. Right. And so it's like, oh, that's why it comes with the kickback wheel. Sorry, drag those toes, buddy. Your hands will grow soon enough. But that might be what your daughter's dealing with too, because I know she's just 3 as well. And it's like, I don't know, their hands are pretty tiny yet.
I think this was supposed to come with a coaster brake, but it's not installed. So,
oh, well,
she can definitely reach the brakes.
She can reach it. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool, man.
What we're trying to work on is the fact that she doesn't have to just like jam the brakes. Because she's used to just like jamming her feet down and trying to stop. But now she can just like feather the brakes, right? And slow down to go around a corner. So working on that one. It might take a little while, but we also have to like work on pedaling forward when we're moving instead of it's easier to spin your legs backwards. So that's what she was doing this past weekend. But yeah, this weekend the weather's going to be a lot nicer. It's going to be a lot cooler. So we're going to probably be outside just pedaling around for hours on end. It's cool to watch. It's a lot of fun. But
oh, heck yeah.
I'm also glad the kids' birthday parties only happen once a year because my God, that was a lot of prep work.
That's good. Nice. Oh, fun. So bikes all around for all 3 of us. But so maybe we should move along to our topics of discussion. I know both Alex and Nathan have something that's worth discussing. I don't know which one of you guys wants to go first, but let's dive into it.
Yeah, Alex, I'll let you go first. I mean, what we're doing here is just kind of like highlighting some of the things that Alex and I came across in the diabetes world, and it's caught our attention, and we just thought it might be fun to unpack with the 3 of us and see what things we learned. Alex, you came across something that I'm curious to hear more about and unpack a little bit.
Yeah. So I think we mentioned this earlier. I'm not sure where it goes in and when we actually started recording, or if this is just all previous conversation. But I found this tweet or X, or I don't know what they're called anymore. It's from like this Trish Green or something. Don't know how to pronounce the name, but it's like this. It's a quote, right? The doctor says, "Don't confuse your Google search with my 6 years at medical school," and then the patient responds, "Well, don't confuse your 1-hour lecture on my condition with my 20 years of living with it." And I saw that, and I was like, "Man, I can relate to that so much." You know, I've had some good good endocrinologists and good practitioners that I've worked with a lot in my life. But having type 1 for 25 years, I'd say that encompassed like 5 years of my experience with the doctors, you know, maybe a little bit more. And other than that, it's been, for me at least, and I'm curious to hear your guys' experience with this, but it's just never been anything overly great. You know, I think I was mentioning earlier, like I'm realizing I need to get a refill on prescriptions. I think it's been 16 months since I've been to the endo. Every time I've gone for the last 4 years, they tell me I need to show up more. They also tell me that I'm doing great and that there's really no advice that they have for me. It's an hour and a half away because it's always right through traffic. And you wait in the lobby. And so it's a half a day of an event to get a refill of a prescription. I'm like, why do I want to go more? You know, you pay $100 to go. Then, I mean, like it's very useful, but that's why I could relate to, like, you know, this post so well, because it's like, I don't tend to go come away with too much information. I even had one endocrinologist at one point, not that long ago, try to explain to me what insulin was.
Well, I mean, so I think you know, this post kind of highlights an important topic, and you kind of then gave us some great examples of your own personal life, Alex. But what comes to mind when I hear somebody say something like that or relay that experience with their endocrinologist And you too, Alex, is we got to remember what the medical system that we currently have is good at, and that's keeping people alive, right? And so they're really good at that. Oh, you just got diagnosed. Okay, we're going to get your blood sugars back under control, and we're going to give you a toolkit to go out and keep yourself alive, right? That's what they've been trained to do. That's what their goal is. They are not trained, for the most part, unless they're really special doctors and really special people that have kind of taken, it upon themselves to do this, but they're not trained to help us thrive. And, again, they're trained to keep you alive. They're not trained to help you thrive. And so if you're going to the endo to learn how to kick ass with type 1 diabetes, to go be an athlete, I hear those stories all the time, man. They're not equipped for that. They're not even trying to do that. They're probably annoyed with you, Alex, because they're probably annoyed that you come in too, because they're like, this guy doesn't need to come in here. Like this isn't even like what I want to do. I want to keep people alive, right? And so that's just the way the system's been built. And I think we all just have to, as people living with this chronic disease, we have to remember that like when we go visit the doctor, like don't go there for insights to like take away and help you, go do a 200-mile gravel race, or go, figure out how to surf in the ocean, or go free diving. That's not what they're there for. That's not what their education is for. So like,
I wonder,
one of my approaches when I go to my endo is simply I ask them a couple questions. I say, hey, is there anything new that I may have missed that I should look at? New insulins? Is there any new pumps? Is there anything new that you can tell me about, because you're on the front lines of, the industry? And so I ask that question, and then I say, great, no, there's nothing new. Still taking the same insulin that I've taken for 15 years. I don't know where the R&D is, but I heard about smart insulins like 10 years ago. Where are those things, man? And then, I have my scripts written and I leave. And it's just like, if you go in with like very low expectations, then I think it's a better experience. That's my personal takeaway from how I look at the medical system and what I expect out of my physicians.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and insightful way to look at it from both angles, right? I can mimic the same experience as Alex, like having diabetes for 27 years. I think I may even have less than 5 years of endos that have understood that what I'm trying to do with diabetes isn't necessarily like by the book. I'm not using my loop system the way the loop system is supposed to be used 100%. Like I'm doing a bunch of stuff that isn't normal in the quote text, but I'm still achieving really good A1C numbers. I'm alive, healthy, have the ability to kind of do whatever I want athletically in life, blah, blah, blah. And I can see that being like, to make what Nathan's saying, very outside of the realm of what they're used to seeing for people that are going to the endocrinologist for diabetes. And like that, just there isn't a space that exists yet for figuring out how to thrive with type 1 diabetes and the different therapies and medicines and tools to use. I think that's like what we're doing here with In Stride, right? That's kind of putting all those pieces in one basket to focus on that and narrow the focus for both the providers that are like the good providers, the good quote unquote, the ones that we like, that like understand that diabetes isn't like just trying to keep you alive, right? Or we are not just trying to keep ourselves alive. We want to live a fruitful and exciting life, and to do that, a lot of times you have to step outside the bounds of what the technology and literature is saying. And the same goes for patients as well. Like if all they're being told and all they're hearing is that, yes, you have to do this in a very structured manner, like by the book, do it this way, and that's going to be the best case scenario for you, that can lead to a more closed-minded way of thinking about diabetes management as a whole, right? Interesting.
I think there's an interesting take here. There's I was talking to a former colleague back when we were doing athlete days with Team Type 1 way back in the day, right? And I wonder
if days, Alex.
Oh yeah,
I know what they are, but
I know.
So, basically, the athlete goes and speaks in front of a group of healthcare providers or people in the community. So it's just basically like a speaking gig where you're just talking about racing and basically what we're doing here, but in front of a formalized group.
Yeah, so we would go out with people from pharmaceutical companies. I think at the time the sponsor was Sanofi or Omnipod or whoever it was. Kind of shadow those reps, meet with some doctors, things like that. And I was catching up with somebody I used to work with on one of those days a couple weeks back, and what she pointed out was that us being there during those events was like the best success they had on their sales teams, because it gave them an audience with these endocrinologists and practitioners. And she said the reason we got that FaceTime is because we had the ability to like inspire the doctors to like motivate their patients more. So that's kind of interesting, right? And maybe slightly in contrast to what you were talking about, Nathan, when you're going in, how they're currently trained to basically keep people alive, and that's like the medical conferences and things like that. But if that narrative is shifted a little bit, there seems to be an opportunity to say, hey, there is a possibility we can do this, and it seems like there's a desire for it, at least in the experiences I've had. Just in the less formal, I go sign in as a patient, go sit in the waiting room, then go into the clinic, right? Like outside of that context, these practitioners really seem to be motivated and like want to say, hey, you know what? We know you can do all these things with diabetes. We just need to figure out the right messaging for it, or the right way to inspire and like motivate our patients. But I don't know. It's kind of interesting how variable and how many loops there are in the system.
No, I mean, you are right, Alex. I think I was maybe a little harsh on the medical, the healthcare providers out there, because I have had some excellent ones. And I had this doc back when I was just getting into cycling. And man, he was just super curious, like I was like, oh, what's going to happen? Do we go do the thing? And so he even went as far as he set up a VO2 max for me. I went in there with a coffee trainer. We're like taking blood draws. It's like, I was just this little we set up a little lab to like see what would happen with this silly diabetic that was racing his bike all over the country. And so that was really fun. So you can, for sure, if you shop around for physicians, find those, those special docs out there that are really engaged and really want to like help you learn as much as you can about this condition. But you do come across tweets like that or posts like that, Alex, where people get frustrated, man. I think the medical field's overwhelmed by it. I think there's just not enough time for the doctors to sit with their patients, and I think the patient's expectations of the doctors is that, hey, I'm paying you a lot of money, so I want to come with all these questions of like, hey, doc, I did this thing and then this happened. Explain this to me. And the doctor's like, I don't have time to do this with you right now. So, the takeaway here is to, I think, yes, search for those really great doctors because they are out there, but then also, make sure your expectations for what you're asking from the doctor is in line with what they have time for. And then maybe to answer those questions of like, hey, this thing happened when I, did the race, and you're trying to find out the why, maybe dive into podcasts like this and try to listen to what, the trial and errors and tips and tricks that we've learned, connect with other people in the community, have those conversations, read as many books on the topic as you can, and try to connect the dots.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I mean, I personally read this a little bit in a different way. And what's cool about a post like this is I can apply it to my own experience, right? And you guys use it for your own experience, right? Like, I have a challenge personally where I just find it to be too much of a pain to spend a half a day to go get my script refilled, right? That's the frustrating part. And then, every time I go in, it's like, we want to see you more, but we have nothing to tell you this time. You're like, great. So I've learned for me, it's just, I have to be honest with them and just be very upfront. Like, yeah, I understand that you want this, but at the end of the day, the last 5 times I've come in, this has been the conversation we've had. My A1C has been actually hilariously identical every time I go in for the last 4 years. So I just say, I just need the script refill. Like, can we just, make that happen and let's move on, but yeah, I mean, I think I had something I was going to say, but now I completely don't remember what it is. So couldn't have been that important.
No, but I think the experience and the way you interpreted that post, Alex, is something that I think it's a mindset. It's a result of the mindset we have and the experience we have with type 1 diabetes and the lives we've lived. Whereas I can only imagine a bulk majority of the people that are visiting endocrinologists very regularly who are maybe either unaware of the ability to kind of tweak things because they either don't have access or just aren't aware or just haven't learned about it yet, to use the tools that we have available to us to do very specific things so that we can do whatever we want while also living and managing diabetes. And that's since we have had so much experience doing that and so much experience with so much diabetes tech and so much experience with diabetes in very strenuous life scenarios, we are very in tune with our own bodies and our diabetes. So hearing someone tell you what either you should be doing, shouldn't be doing, what things are, it's like, yeah, we know. We've been through that boat. We've been living with this for forever. We've tried everything, and we're always trying to push it as much as we can to do whatever the next best thing's going to be. And there isn't anywhere else in the diabetes space as of yet for that innovation to really come to the forefront, right? And if we're when we go to the endocrinologists, we're potentially on a more cutting edge of diabetes tech, from our own personal experience than they may be from just what they're being prescribed, what they're allowed to do within FDA regulations and whatever laws and jurisdictions they may have. So I see both sides of it for sure. And coming in with this expert experience that we have, to put it lightly, is a very different way of going to the doctor than someone who may not have this experience, right?
That's really insightful. Something I kind of forget, because I've lived with this disease for 29 years. I've always had just an immense amount of ownership and agency over, knowing and trying to figure out. At first, just trying to figure out, but then getting to the point where I know how much insulin to give myself when I'm on a pump. I know how to set the pump. I know how to. I don't ask anybody's advice on how to run my insulin protocols, and I don't think that's how most people are taught, and I don't think that's how most people live with this disease. And so this word ownership just was blaring in my head when you were talking, Justin. And I don't think the system is allowing people to truly take ownership over this disease, and that's something that's just so important. And again, one of those through lines of okay, me asking the question over the last 18 years, why is this group over here? I'm talking about the people I've raced bikes with, the elite athletes, the people on Team Type 1, Team Novo Nordisk, some of the Olympic athletes that have type 1 diabetes that I've got to associate with. What makes them successful? And then why are there so many people that are just really struggling to even have the confidence to go on the bike? And I think ownership is another one of those just kind of obvious, but maybe not so obvious through lines of people who are really excelling. It's just, you got to take ownership over this thing. And I know it's scary, and you definitely need to maybe take baby steps. I don't think probably Justin, you, I, or Alex ever really took baby steps, but for all safety purposes, take baby steps, but try to move towards this area of ownership, to where because the reason I'm thinking about this when you're talking, Justin, I was thinking about I was researching Abbott's product they bought, Bigfoot Biomedical, and the product that they have for sale right now with Bigfoot is it's a pen. It's an insulin pen for MDI, but it's a smart pen. So it actually connects with your CGM. So it's telling you, where your insulin is. So it basically gives you how much insulin's on board, where you're trending, and their tagline is something along the lines of like, take the bolus that your physician would recommend. And it's like, or just know yourself how much insulin you need to give yourself.
Figure out your ratios and deal with it.
Well, ownership. No, it's like, no, I don't want to hand the ownership of my diabetes management over to my healthcare team. Like, yes, I want their guidance to teach me what insulin is, how it works, what my carb to insulin ratios are, how stress, how exercise all kind of impacts my insulin sensitivity. But beyond that, now I just need to take it upon myself to figure that out and figure out how my body individually responds to these situations. And then I need to know how much insulin to give myself when I go eat the thing, or I go race in the bike race. You've got to have ownership of that. And so I don't know if the healthcare system is doing a very good job, and the medical device. Just the industry itself, I don't know if it's doing a good job handing that ownership over to the patient.
Yeah,
I think that's what I'm.
Sorry, go for it, Alex.
That's what I'm really excited about with this community that we're getting going, right? And spoiler announcement on that all coming pretty soon. But where people can go in and like learn from one another, right? The education that you're not going to get out of going to the doctor, or that you might get if you're lucky enough. But I know around us, there are like 2 places that I could go. They're all wrapped up with all the same, every healthcare system is like conglomerate now. And like, you can't go to a primary care doc quickly to get a prescription for diabetes stuff. You got to find one of like 2 endos in the area. Right. So, I know for me that this community is going to be something really awesome. But interesting, right? Like, we're going to have these posts and these discussions out there, but that similar to that ownership to take, right? And even on the baby steps, right? Everybody has to learn how to take what they're learning, figure out how to take those baby steps and experiment with it, right? That's what we were talking about in like when I was saying prep for Unbound. I have no idea how to handle 120 grams of carbs an hour and the blood sugar stuff when I got back into cycling. So it was exactly that. Some baby steps saying, all right, well, let's try it at a lower level. Let's see what happens. Then we'll just keep kind of, stepping up. I mean, maybe that's not quite baby steps in the definition you were using, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'm kind of excited about.
I think baby step was probably the wrong way to say it. What I'm saying is like, be safe, and what you're talking about, Alex, is you win at a pace that you were safe at, right? You pushed your boundary of knowledge a little bit further, but you didn't, you threw one foot into this area of chaos, but you kept one foot on solid ground of knowledge, right? And so then you learned a little bit, you took a step forward. And then once you figured that out, you could take another step, right? And so it's really just about, knowing where your knowledge is and not jumping too far in front to where you could put yourself in a dangerous situation. Baby steps probably aren't it, but just knowing where you're at and then pushing your knowledge, learning, trying stuff, pushing a little further.
Yeah, and honestly, through a community saying, hey, I was trying this crazy thing. I was trying to take it a little slow so I could learn, and here were my results. Anybody have suggestions? Anybody done something similar before? Like, what's the next step to take? So I think I'm just excited about getting that community together, because there's going to be some cool insights that come out of it, I'm sure.
Heck yeah. That was a good post that you shared. I think that brought up a good, I like that, man. I like this idea of ownership and how the system maybe doesn't encourage that as much as it should.
Yeah, I was gonna say ownership. I think that's a very good phrasing of it. I think that's it's something we all share, and how we kind of jumped in at the deep end. I think the ownership part of our own diabetes seemingly hit all of us very early on, and because of that, we've been able to like do what we have done, like find these tips, find these like little hacks, so to speak, and using the technology to do what we want it to do, and not necessarily the way it's being prescribed to exactly. Not saying we're doing like crazy off the wall stuff, but we're using it in a creative manner to manage diabetes in very varying scenarios in life, and being able to share that's going to be huge.
Yeah, I just think one quick caveat on everything that we're talking about too is the doctors who were saying, have not known all the ways that we wanted to push things, right, necessarily, are still good and still know, what things could be dangerous. So like if there's ever a question, right, talk to those healthcare providers.
Yeah.
Don't just assume that,
yeah, don't go crazy.
It's going to work.
There's no medical advice being given here. This is all mostly just commentary on the way we view how the medical system is treating people with diabetes. And on that note, is a nice pivot. What's Nathan? What's the topic of discussion you found?
Oh man, the thing that's got me my wheels turning right now. I'm reading this book. I'll just show it. It's what is it? Continuous glucose monitor. Oh, training and competing with continuous glucose monitors. This is from author is Hunter Allen. It's actually a guide using CGMs for athletes who are not type 1 diabetic. Shameless plug here. I did actually get to contribute on the chapter around competing with as a type 1 diabetic. So I was able to work with Hunter a little bit, but I had not read, the rest of the book yet. And so I'm going through it right now. And super impressed by the book. It's, again, it's just, it unpacks a lot of the physiology of what a type 1 diabetic needs to know, how his or her body is responding to exercise, to stress, to food, to insulin. One of the comments though, so one of the things when I read books like this or when I'm just moving through my day, I'm always looking at like where the advantages are as somebody with type 1 diabetes, especially on the athletic front. And again, I make that reference that, type 1 diabetics, it's the same system. We're just driving the manual transmission. So we have more controls over the insulin, over the the food, all that stuff. We just have complete control over the system. And one of the things that he's talking about, he's unpacking what insulin is and how insulin works in the body for an athlete. This is not as a type 1 diabetic. This is just, a normal person with functioning beta cells. And he makes a comment. He goes, insulin, in understanding like insulin production is the opposite side of the coin of what your glucose numbers are showing on your CGM. And he said, it would be so cool. This is quoting Hunter. He's like, it would be so cool if we had continuous insulin monitors, because that's such an important thing to understand. And it is just like, well, I have one. Let's call my insulin pump. I know exactly how much insulin is, entering into my system. And so then you think, okay, well, why does that matter? And it's actually something I've been thinking about a lot, even before I read that quote. It's like, okay, it's really actually special that, as a type 1 diabetic, we understand our insulin sensitivity. So Justin, you talk about this a lot. You're like, oh, I've got 3 days of like hard training in my legs. And so my insulin, my insulin sensitivity is really high, meaning that you need less insulin to, consume the amount of carbs you need. And so if you're actually paying attention to anomalies in your insulin delivery, there's a real power there. There's a real importance there. You can really kind of like get to understanding your body and how it responds through training loads, through stress loads, through, let's say you're a student in college and you've got exams coming up. And like, what does that stress load of exams do to your insulin sensitivity? One of the things that I've always kind of seen with my own insulin sensitivity is when I have, insulin resistance coming on, where I'm just like, oh man, I've got to take more insulin, today than I did, for what's the reason, what's going on. And like, something will happen. Like I'll get sick. Like I can almost predict an illness like a cold or the flu coming on a few days before I get sick, because I'm like, my body's starting to become insulin resistant. Or you can kind of like, if you're like, I don't know if you guys have caught on this with just paying attention to insulin sensitivity, but I'll notice that, like, if I'm just going really hard with work or with life, and you're stressed, you're just hammering, right? I'll see my insulin sensitivity start to diminish. So again, I'm less sensitive. I've got a lot of cortisol in the body. It's like a chronic stress situation happening in life, and I'll be like, okay, I know that I'm like insulin resistant right now. I've got to like take care of myself, and so I will like take extra steps to like make sure I go on easier workouts, make sure I eat really well, make sure I get my sleep, and all those things really help me kind of get back in line before I fall off the cliff, right? I think a lot of people in today's day and age, when you just crank really hard, if you're not paying attention to that stuff, you can really make yourself sick. So as a type 1 diabetic, because we have complete control over this system, and we can pay attention to how our insulin sensitivity is, whether we're insulin resistant, whether we're insulin sensitive, we can kind of manage how we how we rest, how we recover, how to take care of yourself better. And so just for like longevity, being healthy through the ages, I'm 43 now. It's like I want to live really healthy into my later days. It's like I'm paying attention to these things. It's like I'm gonna like see, okay, man, I'm really stressed right now. I can see that not only because I know I'm stressed, but because my body's becoming really resistant to my insulin. Okay, what things can I do to recover? Can I go and go sit in the sauna, go for a walk, just things that will relax the body, relax the system. And so I read that quote. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if, they had insulin, continuous insulin monitors? And I'm like, oh man, yay for us type 1 diabetics. We can use that as another tool to live a super healthy life.
One thing that's pretty sweet too on the related, right? Like we can track our insulin sensitivity. We've gotten a pretty good job of learning how it adjusts based on, the things that are happening in life. But the looping system I'm using actually calculates those values for me, like on a percentage basis. So it's saying, I'm at 120% or I'm at 60% or whatever. And, I only take that, you take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, right? But it's a pretty basic calculation that it is going through. It's saying, okay, you have your insulin sensitivity factor set to, 1 unit for X mgdl, and we noticed that you gave yourself twice as much and barely moved. Is it because you ate some food, or what? And so, like on a rolling basis, it recalculates what it thinks your ratios are, which something we've done for 20 plus years, but kind of cool that it now exists on my phone.
That's fascinating about the smart loop system. I didn't know that even existed. That's cool to like. I always thought being able to predict insulin sensitivity would be behind flying the greatest superpower I could ever have, because that's like, while we generally know where it's going just based on stress, what's going on in life, what we're seeing day to day, it's still an unpredictable exact number exactly. Like I know after several days of training, I will be more insulin sensitive, or if I'm sick or getting sick, or if like I'm noticing that my insulin sensitivity is decreasing because I'm in a stressful situation or I'm about to get sick. I still don't know what that is exactly, and having that loop system be able to predict it ish in a way that's getting closer to an exact number. And that's really, really cool. I'm sure that's there's so many things that go into that, because how can you quantify the amount of stress in your body, or how could you quantify like how sick you are 3 days ahead of getting sick just because you're noticing that the insulin sensitivity is decreasing? That's, I'm sure, still a little ways out, but it's cool to see, like, even just very cool to hear that even exists right now. Because like,
yeah, it's a pretty basic calculation right there on a rolling basis, and I don't know exactly how it works. It's in their documentation, but yeah, it's on a rolling basis. You've given yourself X amount of insulin, and your blood sugars have changed Y, and we expect them to change either, Y plus 20 or Y minus 20 or whatever that is. So it does that. Then it finds a percentage change that it thinks your sensitivity is at. But one thing, I don't actually let the system adjust my insulin based on that sensitivity, because where it doesn't work is when I go off for a bike ride, right? Because it's been on a rolling basis for the last 24 hours. But if I'm going out for a 5-hour ride, those first couple hours, I'm still more sensitive. And so therefore it'll still think that I'm, at whatever percentage. And that could really, I set my targets and things pretty specifically for those, and allowing it to just override that to what it thinks my new ratios are. Because it'll even go and say, if I'm set to 1 to 50, points per unit, it'll say that my new one for whatever time, whether I'm sick or something, or just maybe whatever reason, it's oh, you're actually 1 to 20. 1 unit will bring you down 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
It tries to do that for me when I'm riding a bike and I set my blood sugars at 200. I'm going to end up with 4 or 5 units of insulin on board, and recipe for disaster.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
No, I think you still got to be, in control of the system to that level. It's just the looping systems just aren't good enough yet, because it doesn't know that you're going on a bike ride, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. And but I just think it's kind of cool to think about the insulin sensitivity and the access to how much insulin your body's in need of. Is the other side of the coin. We're taught as type 1 diabetics, and just with CGM conversation out there to just pay attention to your blood sugars, where your blood sugars at, but to kind of pay attention to the other side of that coin with okay, well, how much insulin am I needing to take right now, and is that do I have any anomalies here? It's kind of a cool way to view the system, and there's definitely some insights and some benefits from doing that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think both to mimic on the point Nathan brought up and the point Alex brought up, that taking ownership of your own diabetes and really understanding where your insulin sensitivity is going, whether it's from getting sick, being stressed, exercise, whatever, just normal day to day, knowing where that's going is something only you and only you will know. That's different for everyone on any given day of the year for any myriad of life situations, and understanding where that is, where that's going with technology, knowing your body is super, super crucial to making educated decisions and educated, not guesses, but dosing and treating wherever your blood sugar is going and preparing for what's next. The best way possible is by really taking ownership of it and using the technology available to be as informed as you can about your own insulin sensitivity at any given point and be able to act accordingly.
And with that, I think we've come full circle.
Yeah, that worked out well.
I love it.
Solid. So then, since I think that might be the end of this week's episode, what are y'all's blood sugars at?
Well, you're muted.
You're muted.
Okay, yeah, cool. I'm 138 with an arrow trending straight across.
Ooh, that's good.
That's a good bedtime number. I'm pretty
stoked really good
that.
One.
It's late in the evening here, and so I'm going to just let that one ride all night.
Fair. I am 92 with a slight arrow down, so I think I'm going to need to have a little bit of food before I go to bed.
Well, and I'm 214 with an arrow across, but I'm going to say I had a disadvantage because I have to eat dinner right before we jump on.
Fair.
I keep making excuses every week.
Hey,
well, technically, I think Justin wins, but I'm actually going to go with my number if I had a choice.
I think Nathan's number is a better number. I don't like the arrow down on a 92. If it was 92 across, I'd be happy with it, but I'm going to give this one a number.
You guys got to get yourself an open source looping system, and then I'm I don't even care about 92. I'll just go to bed.
It'll work itself out.
I'll hit 75 maybe, and then it'll bounce right back.
my whole goal in life is to make sure my CGM doesn't start blowing up in the middle of the night and wake my wife up. That's like my main goal in life is to not have my, it's the best. Yeah, no alerts.
I have no alerts.
Yeah, no. Well, that's like the value of buying into the loop system is to not have your alarms wake you up at night. We know how valuable sleep is, and so not getting woken up in the middle of the night is that's money in the bank, man. That's a yeah.
If I hit 68 and my phone was going off, I'd be so pissed because I feel like I could actually just stay asleep and my pump will shut itself off and I'll recover in about, instead of 15 minutes by going downstairs and eating food at 2 a.m, I'll recover in 30 minutes instead.
The loop is amazing. Honestly, I've only been on the loop system for two years now, year and a half. I feel like I haven't actually slept until these last year and a half, 2 years. It's incredible. And sleep's amazing. Good sleep is amazing. Not being woken up in the middle of the night, amazing.
Yeah.
And I do not recommend having a toddler then.
But thankfully it's not on the radar anytime soon.
Last night I was laying on the hardwood floor in her room at like 3 a.m. because she needed somebody to snuggle with, which I'm glad she chose me. It's adorable, but I also really wanted to be in a bed.
Fair.
Anyway.
All right, guys.
That was good. I think we should call that. We'll see y'all at the next one.
Sounds good.